screams in the night, Indian legends, miles of footprints, sightings. What are these elusive hominids that stalk the wilderness? Join us for eyewitness accounts, questions and answers, Bigfoot encounters of the past, and ongoing encounters in the present. Your host, two-time witness, field researcher for 43 years, William Jevning. Welcome to the mystery. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Creek Devil. We have Don Gummo, our good friend, on with us this evening. And Don, you had a very recent and frightening encounter. You texted me about it. So I'm just going to hand you the microphone, and then, of course, Brian and Tom, you can jump in with questions when Don is completed telling us. So, Don, take it away.
Okay. This happened a couple months back, probably when we had the deepest amount of snow here this winter, probably in January, beginning of February. Actually, I'm not quite sure of the date, but I went out snowshoeing, and I had gone my usual areas, and on my way back, I did about 2 to 3 miles that day, but on the way back, getting close to where I live, there's a little swampy area there, and as I was getting closer to it, I heard 4, 5 quick pops. And as I look over, I got a hemlock tree, about an 80-foot hemlock tree, just going back and forth. And I couldn't see the bottom of the tree. And I couldn't believe that they were in that area. I just couldn't believe that they were. I came to realize at that moment that they probably hunkered down during the winter, and so I ended up like making a half circle around them and totally ended up avoiding them. And so that's when I realized they were there in the wintertime, probably hunkered down because they can't move out of this area. I think maybe one could get out of the area by using trees or a small creek. But if there's 3 in there, which I think they're in there, because that's another thing, is I do find bones in that area in the summertime. So it did kind of make sense. And then just about a month and a half ago, I was up running the chainsaw again. And this was right after the thaw. And as soon as I shut the chainsaw off, it was probably about 50 feet from me in this thick spruce and pine tree I have, I got 4 big click pops again to me. And I was getting dark out, so I think they just wanted me to stop running the chainsaw. Because they don't seem to like when I run the chainsaw up in that area. And see, what else is going on here? Is that what you were talking about, Will? With the tree shaking back and forth?
You were telling me about a face-to-face you had?
Oh, no, I didn't have a face-to-face.
Oh, maybe I could have sworn it was you. Maybe somebody else sent me a text. Sorry about that. But let's go ahead and
that's all right.
Continue on.
Hey, Don.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, hey, Don, I was going to say, can you describe the pop? You said there were 4 pops.
It's almost like a champagne pop, but it's a little sharper and very quick. I hear like 4 or 5 of them very quick together, like very, very quick in succession. And they're not the same tone. Like it might go up for the first 3 and then down for the second 2. Or the second 2 would start lower or something. They seem to change, but I can tell it's the same 4 or 5 pops that they give me when I'm getting too close to their area.
Yeah. Now, do you think that they were trying to communicate between different areas? Maybe they were sending a message like the pop, was maybe for another.
Well, I was headed towards them. I think they did that to keep me from going down there.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what I got from the tree shake. I think they popped so I would look, and then when I looked over, the tree was already going. So and there was no wind that day. I looked around; there was no other trees even moving close to this tree. And then it just slowly stopped. And I debated whether I should go down there or not, but I didn't. I walked around the area. But it was amazing to me for them to be where they were in the wintertime, especially, because to move from that area, you would leave tracks. And it's just, I use the comparison of like a cow pasture with a group of trees in the middle of the cow pasture. That's where they were staying. In the wintertime, how would they get out of there? You know what I mean? There'd be tracks everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what I compare it to.
Hey,
and then, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's all right.
Just right at the thaw, this happened about a month and a half ago. We got a couple warm days, couple days of rain, and it took out all the snow that was on the ground. We still had piles around, but all the snow that was on the ground was pretty much gone. And a couple nights later, we had an inch of snow overnight. And by word of mouth, 2 people had gotten a hold of me. They had both captured tracks, different places, but in that same snowstorm. You know, I think that once the snow was gone, they got up and started moving, maybe hunting or whatever. And they got caught with that inch of snow. And the first one I checked out, I don't want to mention the town, but it was fairly close. The guy's driveway that these things came right up his driveway. Wow. They came from across the street, which was the elementary school. And behind the elementary school in this town is a very large section of woods. And there's deer in there, but there's houses that completely surround it. It's just a square in town with houses all around the square, but nothing in the middle. And that's where these tracks came from. But he got a quick picture of it, sent it to me, and then he showed me where the creature stepped. And it made sense. This creature stayed close to the brush, walked through the brush, stayed close to the trees. And this guy he wasn't quite a believer either until he saw these tracks. And I'm glad he got a picture of it. But he now knows where his chickens go. He's got a chicken coop that's completely covered with chicken wire. And something takes his chickens. He thought it was his neighbors doing it because you have to open the door to get into the coop. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it could be. I don't know. But I said, well, it could be one of these if they're very comfortable going next to his house. You know, so that same day, a girl 2 towns away, her and her boyfriend were walking through the woods and smelled what she described smelled like a guy's locker room. Just probably like sweaty clothes and stuff like that. That's what her and her boyfriend smelled in the middle of the woods. Well, she gets home, and later that night, her friend knew this guy in Brooks that lives near me, and heard about the sighting that he told. This is the guy that told me about the guy that had the tracks going up his driveway. This same guy has a friend over in this other town where she found the tracks or smelt that smell. So they told her to go back out there and start looking around for tracks before the snow melted. And she found a set of tracks out there, a trackway. She said there was about 10 of them. And they were pretty large tracks. She said those were big. She estimated, she didn't have anything to measure, but she said it was a foot and a handprint of hers. So it was the length of her footprint and her hand.
Yeah, I was just looking at your text, Don. I sent Brian and Tom the picture you sent me, the footprint. Okay. Very, very good track, and you said 14 to 16 inches long and about 6 inches wide. Yeah, that's what this guy had guessed. He guessed it was about 3 to 4 inches longer than his foot. He was getting picked up by a transportation service when he walked out the door and saw them. As soon as the sun hit them, they melted. So he got up before the sun, and by the time he got back from his appointment, everything had melted. And I even went out back there, and it goes right to a swamp, in a very large swamp area. And this area is, other people have told me that they don't like hunting out there, and that is the area where I was told by a hunter. I was told that
he doesn't believe in these creatures, but there's something very big out there in that swamp, you know. So it's a big area, but it's completely, I'd say like 2 or 3 water systems away from me, because I was thinking it could have been the same group that was around my house. But to get over there, it's like 2 or 3 water systems away. It could be, but I don't have a track. I've never found a track that looks like that picture I sent you, Will.
Yeah, I was just thinking those tracks look different than yours.
They do. And the other impressions that I found around here are pretty much the blocky ones. You know, that one has a big heel or a big ball on it with that heel.
Hey, Will, can I ask a question real quick? How long are the footprints normally, and how wide are they that you've experienced?
You asking me or Don?
Will.
Well, the adults average, 14 to 16 inches. Typically, 17, 18 is kind of the upper range. There have been reports of larger ones, but I would, the normal range, I should say the range is between 14 and probably 17 or 18, that range for adults.
Yeah, because what's funny is that that from what I've heard, that their footprints are wider than human footprints. Not just longer, of course, that obviously they are, but I mean they're wider.
Yeah, they are wider and proportionately than ours are.
Yeah.
Yes, those are 12 and a half casts that I have. The heel was about 1 inch wider than mine, and that was in a 12 and a half inch. It's kind of hard to tell because what I had was not a complete, foot cast. It was just a pad print, just his impression on the top of the sand.
I was texting our anthropologist friend John that we had on last night, and I asked him a question. I said, "Well, what are your thoughts on?" Because back, in the late '60s or early '70s, anthropologist John Napier came up with a calculation based on a Sasquatch's overall foot length multiplied by 6.6, and it gives you a height estimate. And like the Patterson track, for instance, is around 14 inches long. And when you calculate it using that method, you come up with 7 feet 7 inches. So, and that Sasquatch has been, by a number of people, estimated to be around 7.5 feet tall. So that's a pretty good calculation. And John said, absolutely, it's that's without going into great detail, he said mathematically it's a sound calculation to get height estimates for these things using that method.
Yeah. So, Will, do you think that Patty was probably 7.5 feet tall?
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Will.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask on that mathematical calculation. So, do you think that would work equally well for humans, or is it maybe a little bit different?
I'm not sure. I should have asked him that, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just curious because as soon as you started giving me the foot length of 14 or 15 inches, that's exactly what I did. I was jotting down. I got the calculator out. It's a big, even the 14-inch foot, like Will said, it's over 7.5 feet tall.
Right. The big one I saw here a couple of years ago, his impression was he left a perfect foot impression in moss. So I got a pretty good measurement on it, and I measured 17.5 inches. And I know that his eyes were at 8'2" when he stood. So he was probably about 9 feet. So 17.5 inch should work out to about 9 feet with that calculation there.
Yeah, I should mention people too, if they're thinking about that, you have to, once you get the number, you divide by 12. 12 inches in the foot to get the foot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think people underestimate their weight.
Absolutely.
I think these are, yeah, every time I hear an encounter where people estimate 300, 400, 500 pounds, going, boy, they're way off.
They're way off. Yeah, I asked Mr. Black about that a while back, and he said, oh, yeah, they're greatly underestimated.
Yeah. I mean, Jeremiah brought up a great point with Robert Waldorf there, or Waldo, the tallest man that ever lived there.
Yeah. Robert Waldo. Yeah.
Well, okay. What was he, 8'11" or something?
He was 8'11". Yep.
Okay, and he weighed 475 pounds.
Yeah,
but you would never know that just looking at it.
Yeah, and that's like probably an average man size. When you look at him, he wasn't a heavy man. He wasn't extra thin. He was probably average size, maybe.
Yeah.
But that an 8-foot Sasquatch, I think, would be, or an 8'11" Sasquatch, I think would be triple the weight.
Right.
Of him.
You have to remember, without giving everybody the exact ratio, Mr. Black told me that their muscle and bone density is higher than human. So if a human at that height is 4 something, then a Sasquatch is easily triple that.
Easily, yeah. Just their muscle, like you said, is so dense, and they're all muscle, know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have. There hasn't been. It's been pretty quiet around here. About a month ago, I heard them out here. They were doing the owl thing around, and I think they were moving out. I think they were moving out of the area, and then they'll come back this way.
Hey, Don.
But, yep.
Hey, quick question. So it sounded like a minute ago you thought that maybe they're aware of their own tracks, and they try to conceal them or try to operate in such a way that they don't make tracks, like not in the snow and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I absolutely know that they're aware of their tracks. When I picked up those casts in my driveway, I waited all day for them to cure, and it was getting dark out and it was starting to rain. So I started pulling them out of the ground quick, and across the street from me, this thing, I heard the creature come in and was running back and forth, grunting and stomping, like going back and forth across. He was across the street from me, and he was running parallel with the street, back and forth, just huffing and puffing. And I'm going, geez, does he know what I'm doing? He seemed to be getting upset at what I was doing, pulling his tracks off the ground.
He recognized it. That's interesting.
I swear he did. That's how it appeared to me. I couldn't figure out why he would be upset. I mean, why he would even come out that close to me. But I still couldn't see him. The woods were dark at this time. But it was something out there just huffing and puffing. And so what I did is, after I took all the cast up, I had a rake with me, and I raked the driveway out just to show him that I was destroying his foot, impressions.
Oh, okay.
As far as he knew, anyway.
I thought you were doing that as misdirection, so he'd think you were actually just cleaning up your driveway.
Well, maybe that too, yeah. But he seemed to know what I was doing. I mean, it was very strange. I thought about that, and then he showed up at my house that night, hooed in my window, and it wasn't like it was just like I just did, hoo. And then I went outside the next day, and he crapped right on a big rock that he hooed from.
Really?
Yeah, right on the top of the rock. He crapped, and the rock is about the size of a Volkswagen Bug.
Wow.
Yeah, and he and I said, wow, he was mad. Or she. I don't know if it's a he or a she, but
what's interesting about all that is that's the kind of data that I like to collect, and I think it should be collected, because just that one incident, you don't know what it's doing. But if you collect enough of those incidences, you might start to see a trend develop for prediction of what these things know and what they do. Will, have you, and it's almost a rhetorical question, but have you heard that they're kind of aware, self-aware, and they know that they're leaving tracks?
Yeah.
I haven't. I think I've actually heard accounts of people thinking that they cover their tracks with, like, brush them with brush or branches or...
Actually, one of the things that was found by Bob Titmus many years ago, and he mentioned it, or Green mentioned it in one of his books, was that Titmus was tracking this particular individual, which he did numerous times, and as it crossed a stream, it defecated in the water, which makes sense because if you're hunting an area, and this is something animals are keenly, especially predators, are very keenly aware of as other animals and their own scat. For instance, a bigger predator will defecate on a smaller predator's droppings to show kind of a dominance, like this is my hunting area and so forth. So they even much lesser intelligent animals are aware of things like that. So for a higher primate to be aware of footprints, certainly.
Yeah, Will, I was just about to ask, because Don brought this up. How smart are these things?
Well, it's tough to gauge that, but they're pretty smart. I mean, all primates are extremely intelligent. If the Sasquatch is another species of hominin, then not the same as humans, but up there pretty sharp.
Yeah, because it seems like they are very, very well aware of us, and they do these things that are kind of higher order, if that makes sense.
Now, if you look at where footprints and when footprints are found, a lot of times, especially back when they first started being found, the Sasquatches weren't too concerned about them being, seen by the few people who are in it. And we use the Bluff Creek area as an example because that's kind of the standard. Thousands of tracks were found there by, and there were limited number of people that were working those areas. And it was something that there were no roads in there until, the late 1950s. So it was sort of a new thing. And the same thing like with Dan, where he was at, way in far north British Columbia, and they flew in there and he, the thing left tracks right there. It wasn't too concerned. But you get in an area where it's closer to people, we seem to see less of this, even though the sightings happen, and other things happen, but we're not seeing a lot of the tracks.
Mm-hmm. See, that's interesting. Because I really think they're very aware around here. They use a lot of rocks and moss to travel through the woods. And I wonder if they're so aware of their footprints, it's because the fact that people have lived on the East Coast have been here longer, living amongst them. I mean, the Northwest area is fairly the newest, a virgin area up there still.
Yeah, I think it depends, on how careful they're being. If they're being very careful, then, and probably the experience of the individual.
Yeah, I don't know. I just get the feeling that because they're so close to people around here, they have to live in amongst the people. So they do whatever it takes not to give themselves away. Like my dog, that's the one thing I always go back to look at my dog. Why didn't they kill my dog? They didn't kill her because when they hung her in the tree, but it's in other people around here don't seem to lose their pets, and very few chickens go missing. No cows have ever gone missing. No goats that I've asked around. Chickens seem to go missing the most, but they're mostly probably fox or whatever, other coyotes, coy wolves.
Hey, Don.
But, yep.
Let's back up for just a second. I guess Will knows and Brian knows. I don't know. The dog was hung on the tree. What can you elaborate?
Yeah, something hogtied my dog. What happened was it started raining. I was playing pool. When I was playing pool, I noticed it was raining, so I got a ride home pretty quick. And when I came home, my dog wasn't on the runner. So I whistled, waited for her for about 10 minutes. Then I saw the runner moving, so I followed the runner into the woods because the end of the runner was in the woods about 10 feet. And in the woods, she was hanging. She was hogtied, and she was hanging up about her feet were about 7 feet up in the air, and they were tied on to the cable that ran out there. Yeah, and I just ended up cutting the tree down. I couldn't untangle it, and she was hanging by her. She was about 110-pound dog, and hanging by her ankles. I didn't know how long she had been there, and she was just shaking. She didn't say a word.
Gosh.
That was my next two questions, was how big is the dog? So you got a big dog. What kind of a dog is it?
She was half German Shepherd, half Rottie. She passed away since, but she was a big. She wouldn't let anybody do that.
That was, yeah, I was going to say, I'm here on the West Coast, but hypothetically, if I walked up and tried that stunt with your dog, I might be missing some fingers.
Yeah, and just she wouldn't, and it was the fear that was in her, the tremors. She was just shaking. And the only other time I saw her shake is when me and my son and my dog got screamed at a few years earlier one night. We all walked out together, and we got screamed at by one of these creatures. And the dog and my son were back in the house in a second. I just stood there trying to see. I couldn't see the creature. But when I went back into the house, the dog was just shaking. Now, my dog used to run in those woods. My other dog, too, I had a chow dog before that, and I used to let him run in the woods all the time. And I mean, if these things ever wanted to get my dogs or anybody's dogs, they could have, you know. But I did find a skull just about 2 weeks ago, Will, on back of my house. I found a deer skull sitting on a stump out here.
Wow.
So I don't know how that, I don't know how it got there. There's something chewed part of it. It looks more like a canine chewed all around the nose, but it's on a stump, just sitting 150 feet behind my house.
Hey, Don, do you still have that deer skull?
It's still sitting there. Yeah, I left it sit right there.
Can you? So I don't know that if it's going to go anywhere or not, but wondering if you could take a picture of it, because one of the areas that I had encounters and actually, we know they're there. I found a deer skull, but it was sitting on a rock on a boulder, and it was in pretty good condition. I think it was probably a 6 point, but around the bottom you could see what I assumed were porcupines, because they like the calcium. So I'm just curious.
What's funny is I have a lot of bones. I even have old beef bones from a dog I had 15 years ago out here. And these bones sit out here and just turn green, and nothing really eats them. I have a deer rib bone. I take a picture of it every spring. I haven't taken a picture of it this year yet. I haven't gone out there, but when I go out there, I'm going to take a picture of it. It should still be there. And I have a lot of porcupines around here. So I know I've heard that about porcupines, and I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do gnaw on bones, but I don't find it here. Maybe there's another source of calcium for them, or I don't know.
Yeah,
but I don't.
Interesting.
I don't find porcupines chewing the bones around here. I mean, porcupines have like two little chiseled teeth. They leave a distinct mark, and I don't find it a lot on these bones. I have found it on a couple of them, but I have bones that sit out here. Even you'll see the deer skull. It's been there for a while. It's starting to turn green. And that's what happens to a lot of the bones out here. They just turn green. Moss ends up growing on them, and then they're covered. But bones will sit out here for years, and mice will come up and nibble on them a little bit, and the squirrels will a little bit, but not a lot. I've heard people talk about the porcupines will eat the teeth and the bones and all that, but I just don't see it here. That's, I just had to say that.
Yeah, no, that's important. Hey, So you said these things went to different locations. They weren't just at your place now. They're like at some other houses or different locations?
I think it's a different group. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a different group. This is a whole different water area. It's It's in another little valley. It's a lot of rolling hills with swamps in between through here. And to get to one to the other, this one you would have to go all the way through a town, and then you would have to work your way into a neighborhood to get to this. That's why these things are just... Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, how did you find out about these other ones far away?
Just by word of mouth.
Okay.
So the guy that took a picture in his driveway showed a picture to his brother-in-law, which is a friend of mine I play pool with. Okay. So he called me right up and said, you got to get over here. And then I went over and talked to him. And then the next day I get a call from that guy saying, hey, I know a guy over here, that found a track, or his daughter found a track. But it was the same day. It was that same snowstorm. It seemed like as soon as the snow was gone, they came out, probably to hunt. But they came closer to the houses, but then it snowed an inch, and they got caught in that inch snow. And they didn't seem to mind leaving their tracks. These were right up the guy's driveway.
That is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, he showed me it stayed close to the edge of the driveway. It stepped over his kid's sandbox. And he said that's what really blew his mind, how it's just stepped over, one of those little turtle sandboxes they have for kids.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, it was under a branch, and there was a bush hanging half over this thing, and it just stepped right over and went right through.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's what he go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just to say that's what amazed him. That's when he knew something was wrong. These weren't like human.
Yeah, right. Not only that, it's by where his kid is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was he the skeptic guy that saw those, or?
Yep.
And is he no longer a skeptic, or is he on the fence?
No, he's no longer a skeptic. I keep hearing from people I should go talk to him, because he's telling everybody what he found. Yeah. And people, by word of mouth are getting back to me, and I just tell them all I've already been there. I've talked to him. I'd like to go back, because that swamp area there, this area, I hear things about people that walk through this area. There's a trail that goes through this swamp. And every person that goes through there alone, mostly women, they just freak out because they just don't feel comfortable out there. They won't go through alone. A lot of them, they end up running out because they swear something's behind them. They never see anything. And it's mostly women that freak out and run out of there. But it's all in the same area.
Do they hear something, or they sense it?
They sense, and they hear something sometimes, but most of the time they sense it. They'll just be walking and then just start turning around, looking, going, what the heck? They just say they know something's there, but they freak out and they run. It's a road where people like to walk, people who walk for exercise. It's half of it's a tar road, and then you cut through the swamp in the woods for about a mile, and then it comes back out to the road again. So a lot of people walk it for exercise.
Hey, Don, can I ask a question real quick? Because I'm a huge animal lover, and you said that your dog was hanging from a tree.
Yeah.
I mean, did she survive?
Yeah. It took about a day. The next day, I got her about 10 o'clock at night and took her down. And later on the next day, she started walking again. She had rings around each one of her, her ankles, I guess you'd call them, But she was hogtied or tight right around all her ankles, just the way it was done.
And when you say her ankles, are you talking about all four legs or the two legs?
All four legs. Yeah.
All four legs. Wow.
Yeah, I walked up to her, and my hands were out flat in front of me, about shoulder height. That's where her back was. I was trying to pick her up and take the weight off her paws, but it was too high. I had to lift it too high to get the weight off. So a friend of mine was there, and I had this girl, Laura. She ran up and took the weight off of the dog while I ran in the house and got my chainsaw, and I just cut the tree down because it was all spaghetti. It was 20 feet of cable, and it was all spaghetti, all tangled together, and it was wrapped around her legs so tight. And it just was a mess of cable that was put up high and then wrapped around the cable that came from my house and went to another tree. And then...
Yeah. So that was another question was, what kind of a knot was it? Was it a clean knot? It sounds like just kind of a mess.
It was a mess of wrappings. Yeah. And it looked like she got caught in those wrappings with her weight is what it looked like to me, but I couldn't undo them. There was no way. I couldn't get it off quick enough. I was going to get my Dremel and start cutting it. And I just looked at the tree and I said, I'm taking it down. And I just took this big hemlock down.
So it probably had to be these creatures because unless you had like bad neighbors, I don't think.
I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't see anybody doing this. I don't have any close neighbor. I have one close neighbor, but they wouldn't really hear her barking. It was the rain. It had started to rain, and she would bark, and she would not stop barking until I let her in the house. Well, even if I wasn't there, she would continually bark and bark and bark because of the rain. Well, if these things were out there hunting or close by, I think they wanted her to be quiet, is what I think they wanted her to do.
Yeah.
So that's what I think happened. I think they just wanted her to shut up. So they shut her up.
Yeah, because I'm actually reminded by Will's story with his own dog. That's how we got his first encounter. Is that Willie, his collie, ran into the tree line, and all of a sudden, Willie knew that, oh my God, this is something terrible, and that's when Will had his first encounter.
Yeah, the dog had his own underwear changing moment, and I didn't pay attention.
No, you had to see it for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought of this too, Don. It's too bad you didn't take a picture of it, but you're so it's your dog, so you're worried about your dog. You're not thinking about that.
Right. I did draw a picture of it on my computer, like that night or the night after. I still have that like little half-ass drawn picture, but it'll give you an idea like what was going on.
Yeah. You should send it to us, Don. We could put it on the Creek Devil website. So that people know what you're talking about. I was going to ask you too. The picture of the footprint. Would you mind if we put that on the website so viewers can see what we're talking about?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see the break in it too.
It's a very good footprint, very clear.
Yeah. Yeah, there was only about an inch of snow, warm ground, so it was nice and wet underneath.
Brian and Tom, did you guys have a chance to look at that picture I sent you by text?
I have no. But
I did. Yeah, that is an amazing picture.
Yeah, he said it was wide. It was wider than his boot print.
Mm-hmm. And you said it was like 14, 15 inches long?
That's about what he guessed. He said it was about 3 or 4 inches longer than his boot, and his boot was 12 inches. So I'm just saying 14, 15.
Yeah.
It could have been an inch longer, but I just call it 14, 15. It's kind of hard to judge sometimes.
Hey, Don, can I ask a question? Like, how was your experience change since your encounter?
How has what changed? Like, my outlook of the woods?
Yeah.
My backyard's changed quite a bit. Yeah, it's not so like I'm a heck of a lot more aware of what's out there. Mm-hmm. I try to be. I mean, I spot everything when I'm out there. I spot porcupines in trees. I spot rabbits. I spot foxes. when I go out with people, they don't see these things, but I'm always looking around because I don't know if this sounds weird or not, but ever since I had that sighting, I've had a vision that this thing's going to step out in front of me one day. I'm going to be walking in the woods and he's just going to step out in front of me.
Yeah.
So I keep seeing this over, for a year or so, I kept seeing that over, that he's just going to step out in front of me one day. So I used to carry a camera a lot and I just let it run a lot. Never happened, but
yeah,
it definitely changed. Like you do have hundreds of questions. Like, what are they doing there? I mean, they're all over the world and they can't be all the same species,
Yeah.
They're all very different, described very different. And you really wonder what this planet is. Are we just a planet of all different hominids? This is definitely a planet of hominids,
Yeah, it's funny because for the longest time, I grew up in Michigan and then I moved down here to Florida, and I never in my life have seen a deer. But all of a sudden, just a few months ago, all of a sudden a deer jumps across the road, and it's like, hey, there's a lot of wildlife out there that probably most people have never seen, and I think it's out there.
Hey Brian, that makes me think of. I was just thinking about this the other day. If you're out in the woods, the next to the last thing you want to see, and Will, you probably know where I'm going with this, is a deer to come running out of the woods and then stand right next to you, because it's coming next, right? Is that right, Will, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's certainly possible.
Yeah, I've actually had that happen. I've had 4 of them come running right. 3 of them went past me and 1 stood right in front of me. I was bent over picking mushrooms, and I heard them coming through the woods, and they all ran right at me. And this was probably around 2008, 2009, when I really didn't quite know what I had in the woods here. So I wasn't looking for anything. I knew something had spooked them, but I didn't see anything chasing them. But one of them stood right next to me, looked right at me, and I looked back down and started cutting mushrooms, and I saw her walk away. And she just slowly walked away, and they just moved away slowly. But they know me, though. They kind of knew me up there. I was always up there, and I'd see them up there a lot. And as long as I didn't stare at them or look at them, they didn't move, But as soon as I would make eye contact with the deer, they'd just take off.
What do you have? Are they blacktail or whitetail or?
Whitetail, yeah, and an occasional moose. There's a lot of them. There used to be a lot of them. Oh, that's another thing I was going to say. Well, I'm definitely noticing a decline in the deer. More bones, finding more kill sites in the wintertime. I don't know if there's coy wolves up here now, but in the springtime when I go out now, I should say this, I don't know when these kill sites were actually killed, but after the snow melted, I went out and I'm finding more and more carcasses out there and less deer tracks. And the deer are getting smaller. I've noticed in the past 20 years, the does are getting smaller that hang around here. There's still big does around, but not like it used to be. I think just a lot of predators moving in. And like you said, there's logging going on out behind me, about a mile behind me. A big area is being wiped out.
Yeah, all those different things are going to make a lot of changes in the game.
Hey, Will, do you think that they're hunting more elk, as opposed to like just typical does or deer?
Well, the deer are probably easier to catch, easier to handle for them. I mean, elk's a big animal, so they do hunt them, but I'm sure the deer are probably less of a problem.
Yeah, that's it. That would be their main source out here. There's quite a few rabbits out here too. The snow hares, the snowshoe hare there. We've got quite a few of them running around. But I see a lot of other predator tracks up here, cat tracks, and I know there's koi wolves up here. I saw that one last year. But they seem to go away. You know, when these things move in, you don't see much of them anymore.
Yeah, they know when they're around.
Yeah. Yeah, about a month ago is when I had the deer laying next to my house again.
Or I should say, once they figure out they're in the area, that's when they start moving out.
That's when you're right. That's what set me off to stop putting my recorder out. It was about a month and a half ago. One day I had deer in my front yard. They were laying down there in the middle of the day. And then the next day, a friend of mine came over and she brought her dog over. And as soon as the dog stepped out of the vehicle, these 3 deer just stood up right out from behind my shed. I mean, they were 50 feet from me. Didn't even know they were there. I was in my yard doing stuff most of the day, and there they were laying there. But as soon as she stepped out of the vehicle with a dog, they smelt the dog. They just stood up and walked away and walked into the woods. They didn't run. They just stood up and walked away. And that's when I put my recorder out, and I got them doing the owls, and I could hear some other like low whoops later, like early in the morning. Mm-hmm. But then nothing. They just seem to come through. And then the animals come back. Sorry. Then the animals come back. It's funny. They move closer to the house, and then they'll move away from the house. No.
Hey, Will, do you think that they target cats, like cougars and wildcats in the Pacific Northwest, or no?
Anything that's easy for them. I mean, if something's available and they can catch it, they will.
Mm-hmm.
Especially a competitor, in these tight areas. I would think so around here.
Right.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of predators around. And deer is the only thing, really.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is small.
Hey, Don, quick question. And it actually will, too. Don, I'm looking at the footprint that you sent. It's an amazing footprint. It almost looks like this thing has toenails, like claws or big toenails or something. Do you think it's that, or do you think it's just the way the snow broke?
I see. I know what you're talking about there. And he said it looked like it had toenails or claws hanging out, is what he said.
Okay.
To him, it looked like toenails.
Yeah.
Or something on its feet.
Well, what that probably is when the foot's moving forward, it drags the snow or dirt with it, so you're going to get an image like that.
On the way out, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I did see that in the picture. I wish I could have seen them up close.
Yeah, because see, on the big toe, there's actually 2 of those, and 1 on the next toe, but none on the other toes.
Okay.
So that's as the foot's moving forward, it's dragging, it's pulling some of that material out with it.
Right. Yeah, and he said it looked like it wasn't running. It was definitely walking through. But when he pointed and showed me where it came from, I went, holy cow. I couldn't believe it was coming from the elementary school.
Yeah, they're great tracks.
Yeah, it's just you're trying to figure out if the thing was in there, hanging out in there, because no one really goes into this area in the wintertime. Not when there's snow out there.
Yeah. Hey, Don, I was actually going to ask, have there ever been any reports in that same area that you had experience with?
Local reports, yes. I talked to people around here. A lot of people just never wanted to say anything until, like, I said something. And then they approached me and told me, yeah. And I have a few other people. And I use a transportation company around here, and these people all know me. so when they talk to people all over the area, they send them my way. And so I do hear a lot of reports around here. You know, some people just don't want to talk about it. They just want to tell you what they saw, and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had last spring, just about a year ago, right during the thaw last year, a mom and her little daughter, the girl was about 6 or 7, and they were riding a 4-wheeler along one of the streams down here. And as they were going down the path, they saw something in the stream. The stream's about 10 feet wide, about 2 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
And there's rocks in it. And they saw something in the middle, and they started to slow down. And then they saw the thing stand up, and it jumped up and got in the middle of the path and just sat there swaying back and forth. And these two girls just started screaming. The girl was able to maintain and turn the thing around and get out of there. But the daughter had a really hard time. You know, she didn't like what she saw, doesn't want to go in the woods anymore. And this girl doesn't want to talk about it either.
Yeah.
Not a good experience, you know.
Yeah, Will, let me ask you this. Like what Don was just talking about, do you think that there are a lot of people that after they experience an encounter with this thing, that they don't want to go into the woods ever again?
Oh yeah, I get it from people all the time.
Yeah, hunters too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know guys that will not hunt certain woods around here. You know, they just won't go in them.
Don, these two gals, they were both on quads?
No, there was a mom and daughter on one quad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mom, I think she's about 30. The daughter, and the mom and her daughter was 6 or 7.
Wow.
And the thing just jumped out in front of them and stopped them and just stayed there. And she said it swayed back and forth, and they just screamed. It never looked back. They didn't want to look at it again, she said.
Well, isn't it kind of...
Sorry.
There's sort of like it's almost iconic. These things seem to not like quads.
Yes.
Okay.
And a very telling feature there was the swaying back and forth. That's very agitated. That's sort of when primates are on the brink of attacking, when they start doing that swaying motion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like get out now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I don't hear that too much. What I hear up here a lot is people see something running. You know, I did have the one beaver. This guy traps beavers up here. He followed tracks down an old riverbed, and they were huge. And he was telling me they were not bear tracks. You know, he knew they were not bear, and I think he measured them out to 21 inches.
You know, it's actually
not bear.
No,
it's good. It's not a bear.
No, he showed me the picture, and I saw the footprint. I said, "Oh man, you got to send me that picture." And I never got the picture. And I went back to talk to him, and he said, "You know, those were probably bear." And I said, "Well, where's the picture?" And he said, "Oh, I just deleted it." And I could tell he just did not want to talk about it anymore. That was it. So it's happened up here to a few people that someone will make them feel like a fool, basically. They'll start talking about Bigfoot and how they believe in it, but other people up here will make them feel like a fool, and then they don't believe in it anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
Unfortunately, that's all it takes.
Yeah, and they don't want to be made a fool. So I know a lot of people that have changed their minds because of it. You know, and it's funny because there are sightings up here that do go back years and years. You can read about them up here. Mostly along the coast too. There's a lot of them along the coast. So I think they use the coast for maybe feeding in the wintertime. There's a lot of available mussel, clams. There's lots of mussels up here.
Yeah. Fellas are running short on time. any final thoughts for this segment? Don's going to be coming back with us on the next segment, so folks, stay tuned for that. But
I just want to say that Don is a great guest, and welcome.
Hey, oh, thank you. Yeah, and one more thing I did want to say is I did realize this winter that they do hunker down for the wintertime. Because where they were is a place where they all are like in the fall. I don't think they leave. I just thought they left, but I think they just don't run around in the snow anymore. They know that I'm up there, and they know people go up there, and you just don't find. If they do go out in the wintertime, they may go from tree to tree. This area, they can do that, or any rocks, or rock walls, or something. But I just, I do believe they hunker down, though. That's one thing I wanted to say.
Brian, Tom, any final questions for this segment?
I think I'm good. It's fascinating account, and the fact that you provided a photo with it is incredible. I mean, that's like a 1 in 100.
Yes, I agree.
Well, listen,
I have the.
go ahead.
I have the second photo, the other foot too. I'll send you that. Well, I thought I might.
Oh,
I thought I sent it. But,
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, okay. Don, I can't wait for you to come on again because I have a lot more questions, but I think that's good for tonight.
Yeah, well, Don will be joining us for this Q&A, so folks, stay tuned for that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Next week. Yeah.
All right, fellas. Well, listen, we'll wrap up this segment. Folks, stay tuned for the Q&A. We'll be right back after the break. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Creek Devil. We were going to do 2 shows this week because I'm leaving on vacation. I was going to be leaving on Friday, but my friend Milo, his mother took a spill, so we're going to have to kind of wing it. We're going to do this show, and then what we'll do is when I come back in just a week, we'll be producing 2 shows to kind of catch up for that. So sorry, folks, but we'll be missing this weekend, but we'll be catching up the following week with 2 shows. So we have Don back with Q&A, and Jeremiah Fountain, our esteemed leader of the JRG. So, fellas, how you doing?
Well, how's it going?
How you guys been?
Good. Well, now this is the Q&A section of the show. So, I know, Tom, I'll let you take the lead on this because you're kind of running the website. I guess we got our first question from a listener.
We did, yeah. We got a great question, and also this is my first chance to introduce myself to Jeremiah. So, Jeremiah, pleasure to meet you.
You too, Tom. Pleasure. Pleasure's all mine, man.
And I've heard you before, so this is great stuff.
Absolutely.
So what I got was I got a real nice email from somebody on the website, and sounds like they may be in Oregon. But I'm actually going to start this off with a question that I got from Michelle, and I don't know where she's from, but she has an excellent question. This is for Will.
Okay.
Will,
where does the name Creek Devil come from? Is it?
Good question. Creek Devil, Mountain Devil, there were a number of names, and these were all local primarily, but some of those names got a little bit of coverage, and I don't know what exactly areas those covered, but
the Wood Devil was up in the Northeast here. It was common up here.
Right, but these are names that predate Sasquatch and Bigfoot by some time, so that's the reason I chose the name for the show, because I'm not particularly fond of Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
Right, it's been used.
Right.
And that's a learning thing for me. That's interesting. Okay, and I think he answered it, but she said, if yes, are the Native American names, she wanted to know which tribe or tribes calls the Bigfoot Creek Devil.
I don't think any of them really call it Creek Devil. That was more of an Anglo term.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, and if you go to town halls in these towns that were having sightings, and look up old maps of the towns, 1700s or the latest maps they have, but you'll see a lot of creeks and little rivers will have the word devil in them. You know, a buddy of mine, he had a sighting, a friend of mine, in probably around 79, 80, 1979, 1980, and it was along a river which is called like Man's River now, but when I looked it up on a 1700s map, it was called Devil's Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right where he had his sighting, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Don, that's funny that you mentioned that, because I went on to, and Will knows this, and Brian's got it too. There's a plug-in you can put in Google Earth that gives you, it turns it into the United States, anywhere that the USGS has jurisdiction, it gives you a topo map. And so Oregon, Washington, California has a surprising number of Devil Canyons, Devil Creeks. And so, yeah, interesting that you mentioned that. And I also heard that they were called in Oregon in the late 1800s, for the lack of a better word, in Eastern Oregon, I think they called them kangaroos. You know, maybe because of the way they walk or something. I don't know.
I've heard them described as moving. Jesus, where do we interviewed someone? Don, was it the lady from Florida a while back, and she described it as hopping like a kangaroo kind of.
Oh, the woman that pulled over on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it came toward her. Yeah.
Came toward her, yeah. And she said it kind of moved like a kangaroo.
Yeah, it crossed the road once, and then the next time it crossed the road, it was even closer. It was getting closer to her.
Yeah. Crossed back the other way, and it was even closer to him.
Yeah, she said it was acting strange, too, its movements or something. Yeah.
And when was this? What was this in recent times, or?
Late 70s?
No, she was in like high school or something, a place they used to just go hang out.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the 70s. And
she thought it was like a kangaroo?
Yeah, she said it moved like a kangaroo. Yeah, I think what got her was, what made her think of a kangaroo was the athleticism, you know, the way the thing moved, and so on and so forth. I think that's why she related the two. Obviously, they don't look alike, but I can kind of see where he's coming from on the movements.
Well, you know, and that what Will's described as like cross-country skiing, their walk is totally, it's not human at all.
Not at all. Not at all. There's, in my opinion, I know we discussed this many times, there's nothing human about these things, in my opinion.
Right. They have 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 ears, 2 eyes.
The Patty video shows that that's glide as she walks across there.
Yeah.
We can't walk like that.
No, lifting her foot up at a 90-degree, or her leg, bottom part of her leg at a 90-degree angle. If we ever try that, we look foolish doing it, you know.
And then when the knees pivoting back into the inside, I mean, we can't do it.
Yeah,
I've never got a chance to see one walk. Not yet.
but what gets me is their direct register, 1 foot in front of the other. It's do that, you know. Somebody said, I gotta look it up, but I saw a picture just 2 days ago of what was supposed to have been Sasquatch prints in the snow, and that's the first thing I looked for, and it looked like it was that one in front of the other picture.
Were they mine?
Oh, yeah.
I posted something the other day from an area up in the Adirondacks over the winter time. Was there a big leather glove next to one of them?
There might have been. I'll have to go back and double check. Yeah.
Okay, check it out. There was 2 different individuals. One set was 17 inches. The other set was 18.
And they were more. Yeah, and they were in the snow, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, and when they step in the snow, the ones I've seen up here, they in about 1.5 feet of snow, this creature ran through and didn't never drug the foot coming in or coming into the step or out of the step. It was a perfect footprint
that's
straight
bizarre.
down, and somehow it got the foot out. I could see where the hair brushed against the snow, but the foot never took any snow with it on the way out.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting. You know that, and you think about it. If you and I or most people, you walk through the snow, you kick it. You know, you drag your feet.
Right.
Kick it. Yeah,
Right.
I figure a toe drag or on the way out or something, but nothing. These things just pulled their foot straight out.
Yep.
That was amazing. They were 8 feet apart. It was the craziest thing.
It's that angle they bring their knee up at that
Right.
brings the foot.
They lift that foot up high quick.
Right.
Now, are these? And did anybody measure the length of like how many inches these might have been, or the foot tracks?
The ones I saw was 17 and a half, 17. The ones, Jeremiah, how big were those in your picture?
17 and 18.
Oh,
That's 9.5, almost 10 foot. That's a big.
yeah.
It's a big animal.
Yeah.
It's a big animal. And our other friend, Don and I are pretty buddy with he's a cop up here, and he's got 6 of these individual creatures on his property. And everyone in his family has had an encounter, and he just messaged me the other day, and he found a set of 22-inch tracks. He's going to send them to me, tomorrow or sometime tonight.
22 inch.
yeah.
That is huge.
That's huge, and I believe his daughters. How'd it go down? His daughters are riding the 4-wheeler out in the field.
4-wheel into a field, yeah, and he was sitting on the side, just watching them.
Big gray alpha. And
They thought it was a cow or something. They thought it was.
He was on all fours at first. Then he said to the little girls, "Well, how big was he?" And she said, "Well, Daddy, way bigger than our bulls." And the next night, it ran out in front of he and his wife.
Right, but it was just sitting there watching the girls. It didn't take off. That's
right.
That gets a little creepy,
It's creepy. It's a little creepy, yeah.
But it was on all fours, right?
Yes, when it was it was on all fours at first, and then they described it as getting into like the football stance and waving back and forth.
Oh, that's
he was very fixated on them.
Wow. It's funny. Brian and Will, you guys remember Rich, my neighbor, some time ago came on. He was the guy talking about he saw the eyes, the yellow orange eyes.
Right.
And I was talking to him a couple weeks ago. He had a barbecue, and he said, after he did that show, he goes, well, hey, 5 years ago, he goes, we didn't know what it was. We saw something cross the road in that same area where he saw that same mountain down the road. And as he put it, quote, that is the most ugly ass elk I've ever seen. It didn't have antlers, it didn't have ears, their nose was wrong. And he said, I didn't know what it was at the time, but he said after that show, and especially listening to my cousin's wife, Sam, talking about it on all fours, he had never considered that they would be on all fours. He goes, I am positive that's what it was. So he had,
Right.
So apparently they do from time to time will get around on all fours.
Right.
My first encounter with the juvenile, when he finally bolted off, he took off on all fours, and I if I had wanted to put a bead on him, I couldn't have because he was moving so freaking fast.
Yeah.
So on all fours, do they? You've seen chimpanzees run, where they sort of galoop, galoop, galoop. Do these things do the same thing?
It's a little bit different.
Well, when he took off, the one came to my house here, he took off on all fours, but he hit every rock a lump of moss, rock, log. He did not touch the ground until he was a couple hundred yards up the hill, and then he started breaking branches. As soon as he got off the rocks, he was making noise anyway, I guess. So I heard him breaking branches up there. But the first part of the run to get out of there, it was quick, fast, and silent.
Unbelievable. Unbelievably fast.
Silent. And I never heard a thing.
It's unreal. And what's different, Tom, is, when a chimpanzee's on all fours, its back is kind of slanted.
Yes.
At an angle.
Exactly. Right.
With these things, it's more of a straight, their backs are more straightened out.
Oh, that's exactly what Rich said. He said the back was perfectly straight.
Yep.
Box.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I saw up here too. Just a straight back running on the other side of a wall. But I blew it off as a bear, but I didn't know back then. But now that I look back, I even the color was off. It wasn't a black bear. It was more gray mixed in with black. Or it had like white highlights or something. It was something different about it. And I yelled up on the hill. I was going target shooting. And I always yell out that I'm shooting. Nothing moved. I took a shot, and from this rock wall in front of me about 100 feet, I just saw this flat black back just going across on the other side, and then it just stopped. But yeah, like I said, there was some gray, something else mixed in, almost like a if you were looking at a porcupine. It had like white highlights on it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right.
Well, it's funny because what you're saying is exactly what Rich said, and I suspect most people, when they first see one of these things, if they're not thinking Sasquatch or Bigfoot, their mind goes straight to what you go to what you know.
Absolutely. I mean, in my first encounter, I couldn't really comprehend what I was looking at. It was something I couldn't compare. I couldn't compare it with anything else, except maybe a primate of some sort. But then again, it did look a little bit different, just very strange. And I told Will when he interviewed me about this encounter, it wasn't very tall. It was maybe 4.5 feet. But when Will asked me how much it weighed, I would say anywhere from 180, 200 pounds. People say, well, that's not that freaking big. Well, when you're talking about a 4-foot creature and he's jacked at 200 pounds, that's a big animal.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that is very big.
Brian, any questions or?
Well, I promised Martha that I'd get some of her questions in. The first set are about the Patterson film, which I know you've talked about before, but I guess it's probably worth reiterating. But first, she wants to know, what do you think about the photos that Todd Standing took a few years ago? I mean, have you seen them? And what do you think about them?
I think Todd Standing stuff is phony.
Yeah.
I second that.
Yeah.
I think he's a fraud. I think there's nothing but puppets.
Yeah, that Netflix special he had, just that last picture he had of one, I don't know. I know all the other ones are funny. There's something off about all those other ones, but that last one, you can see the eyes moving and the skin wrinkling. Scar. I can see a couple of scars. I don't know. I don't know because of what I think he's done before.
He made that in response to people saying just that there's no eye movement, there's none of these kinds of things.
Right.
I mean, if you work in a job making Muppets, you can do things like that. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't his girlfriend a makeup artist too?
Him and his sister worked for Jim Henson.
Okay.
Oh.
There we have it. I think he's a fraud.
There was a guy on the internet. Somebody took a picture of him, and to me, the final thing was his lips, his upper lips, his mouth shape, and it might have been Thinker Thunker, but he took a picture and then morphed it into.
It's his face.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that there's an author. There was an author that did the same thing. He really dissected all the photos and the pictures, and clearly dispelled all of them.
From that point on, I went, "Ooh, look at that! That's the kind of the money shot he had or whatever, the good shot. I went, that face looks exactly like his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was my opinion.
The one with hair, it has hair all over it. Is that the one?
And
Yeah,
you ever wonder why he only has pictures of faces?
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, we'll kind of switching subjects, but going back to the Patterson film, I know we've talked about this before, but she just asks, how tall is Patty estimated to be? What is her stride length, and what was her foot size?
The estimate was around 7.5 feet, and the calculation, overall foot length, which is 14 inches, multiplied by 6 times 6 divided by 12, bears that out about, I think, 7'7" is what that calculation comes out to. I don't remember off the top of my head what the stride was. It's in a folder someplace here, but
well, what you just described, the footprints multiplied by 6'6", you said?
Yeah,
6'6",
the overall foot length.
Yeah.
Multiplied by 6.6 divided by 12.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm not saying that Bill Munns is wrong, but when he showed how he did his estimate, it just didn't make any sense to me because, for a variety of reasons, you can see it on one of those documentaries.
Can you refresh my memory what his estimate was?
It was about the same, but he probably got it right. But the way that he did it had nothing to do with foot size. He just kind of recreated the environment on the computer, and then he just kind of said, it just didn't make. I mean, I'm not saying that he's wrong. It's just that it wasn't clearly explained in that documentary how he came to that conclusion.
Yeah, I was messaging our anthropologist friend John just a few days ago about that very subject, and he wasn't aware of John Napier's calculation. And John Napier was the English anthropologist who worked at the Smithsonian back around in late 60s, early 70s. And he came up with that calculation, and John said that's exactly the kind of thing that should be used. He says that's very scientific, and he says it's pretty close to what they would actually do. It's pretty accurate, he said.
Right. And what would they estimate her weight at?
Early estimates were, now this is just people in the beginning, Green and those guys eyeballing it. They said 200 to 300 pounds, but actually it was much higher than I think Bill Munns estimated. I believe it was 700 or 800 pounds.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
What happened because the footprints go so deep into the ground.
Right.
Yeah, Patterson, one of the things he did, him and Gimlin, they took the big horse and they walked the horse next to the tracks, and it didn't make hardly an impression compared to the footprints. Patterson wore cowboy boots. He got up on a stump, jumped off the stump. Of course, he was a little guy, but landed with his heels next to the tracks. They didn't make hardly any marks. So the creature was much heavier than what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, I've said to all you guys before, I think people underestimate the weight of these creatures.
They do. Mm-hmm. That's because their bone and muscle density is much higher than ours, so the weight's deceptive.
Right, absolutely.
Muscle weighs a lot more than fat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what's interesting is there's a perception among some people that, well, if it's that big, it's kind of a lumbering, lethargic thing, but they're not. They're lightning fast, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that used to be the impression for many, many, many years, was that they were just this big thing bumbling around through the forest, and that's kind of a ridiculous perception.
It's very ridiculous because they are a master of their environment. They got to be able to move fast.
They're ninjas. They're ninjas out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you look at the silverbacks, and even those. They're pretty quick. They're pretty spry when they get.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Very.
Do you have any more questions, Brian? From.
Not from any listeners, but I was going to ask. Did you hear about how the FBI recently released 22 pages on their Bigfoot files?
I saw something about that.
Yeah. Okay. So the story is that Peter Byrne, of all people, back in the 70s, he apparently found 15 hares, and he actually sent a letter to the FBI asking them to review it and can you help me prove the existence of the creature? And they did. They actually did. They put it through their labs, and it turned out to be not Bigfoot, but actually hairs of a deer. And I was just wondering if you had heard about that.
Well, I guess
Just
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Well, I guess
read it about a couple weeks ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
Were those? Did you find those in Nepal, or was it here in the States?
It's in Oregon.
Okay.
well, the first thing, Peter Byrne's a fraud. I mean, that guy was the worst person. You know, just interviewing people. He only interviewed maybe 150 people throughout his career, witnesses.
Right.
Renee DeHinden sued him and actually ran him out of the subject. He didn't make an appearance again until around the time that Renee passed away. You know, the guy really has done the sum total of nothing. So,
Right.
You know, and not to mention, you know, stealing. You know, they had the Yeti artifacts in Nepal, the skulls, or skull cap, I mean, rather, and the hands. You know, so I mean, he stole some of that material and, you know, lied to the monks there, and just, you know, kind of a deplorable guy. So, now
it's kind of a dick move to lie to a monk.
Yeah, well, he got him drunk and then took the stuff, and wired in chicken bones. So it didn't look like he took anything. But let's go back to the actual what they say about that. When they took hairs, there really isn't a heck of a lot they could do with hair anyway.
Right.
Especially if you go back to the time frame that hair would have been sent in. Even by today's standards, they can't do much with hair because there isn't anything in the DNA database to compare it to. So the best you can come up with, like with TW's contact, you know, in the sheriff's department down there, they ran that blood sample, did a full spectrum analysis, a $40,000 test, and the best it could do was unknown primate. So I'm sure Byrne stuff would have been, I mean, I don't know what the time period was on that, whether it was in the 70s, 80s, 90s, what have you.
I think it was the 70s. Yeah.
So,
70s.
So there was little to nothing they could have really told from that hair.
And you had to read the whole article before it got to the last line and said it was a deer.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something about hair. We had a witness in the Midwest by the name of Lisa, and she found a line of trees like the ones I found in 1991 that were spaced out, you know, and snapped 90 degrees out hiking. Yeah. And she collected some hair. Now she sent it to one of my friends here who was a biologist, and he was able to determine that most of it was canine hair, but there was a different sample in there that he was unable to identify. So today he sent that off to our forensic anthropologist, and we'll see what he's able to tell. The hair was, he said it was a little on the thin side, it was kind of wavy, and it was reddish brown in color. He said it was unlike anything he'd ever come across. So coming from a biologist and now going to an anthropologist, we'll see if anything interesting comes up with that.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Will, I wanted to ask you, what did Mark Dobbs ever think of that bone I sent you?
I haven't heard yet.
No. What do you think? What's your opinion?
It's interesting. I mean, I don't know that much about, you know, chew marks on bones, but oops, sorry, I'm dropping things here. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for the experts to.
Right.
And I have all those other bones to go with it too.
Yeah. John's got a bunch of them too, and you can actually see the striations or something like a giant human teeth break down this thing like a chicken wing, like we would a chicken wing.
Yeah, or like a piece of chocolate, how you would leave your teeth marks right through the chocolate. Yeah. This thing went right through the bone.
That's right.
But you can see, I can see teeth like a top print or a bottom print of teeth in two spots on one of my bones clearly, and they measure that. You can just tell it's two different, either bottom or top prints. I think they're bottom actually.
Yeah.
But Will, the real important thing about that article is, why did the FBI only release 22 pages? Why don't they just release everything they have on it? Are they covering something up, or do they know a lot more than what they're saying? It's kind of like the JFK assassination, right? Why don't they just release everything they have?
I'd have to take a look at the papers, I guess, but it might have been due to the kinds of questions he asked.
Mm-hmm.
They may not have released them all, because especially if it, involved private parties and things like that.
Right.
You can't just release people's information, on something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially someone like Byrne.
Yeah, it was funny. They only released that one. I thought that was odd too.
Because how did he do it? He somehow got somebody in Boston, I thought, to underwrite his project.
Well, Byrne actually had a bunch of his buddies, because he was a big game hunter. In the Himalayas and all that stuff way back when. And Tom Slick hired him, and I kind of suspect that was a little bit of a cover-up maneuver anyway, because he had the Northwest Expedition that was headed by Bob Titmus and John Green and Rene DeHinden, and there was, I think, one or two other people involved in that. So in the middle of their work, Tom Slick brought Peter Byrne in, fired all them, and put Byrne in charge. And it went nowhere. So my gut tells me there was a little bit of a cover-up going on with that whole thing. And I'll tell you what, Green and Hinden and Titmus were very angry about that. And very resentful until they died against Peter Byrne.
I'm sure.
Now, what do you mean by a cover-up? Cover-up of what?
Well, those men in the Northwest Expedition were in the Bluff Creek area, really conducting a search of that area. And prior to that, they had had some fairly good success. And then all of a sudden, Tom Slick, now it was Tom Slick's project, so, why would you stop something that was marginally successful in favor of something that just died on the vine? There was absolutely nothing done with it under Peter Byrne.
Right.
Oh, okay. So you're suggesting maybe somebody got a hold of Slick and said, "Listen, we need to put the kibosh on this," or?
Well, rumor had it that he had CIA connections. So, I mean, without saying it, you can infer that something was going on there. I mean, it just never made any sense to me why you'd put somebody in charge of something, number one, that didn't know the area, didn't know the things that were going on, and was really terrible at doing that kind of work, and did nothing with it.
He was British on top of that, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Well, we could definitely hold that against him, right?
Well, that wasn't the problem. It was just because, when you look at his track record, I mean, even the book that he wrote was not very good. So,
well, he apparently had some issues with the IRS later in life.
Well, back in the 90s, a group of his friends, and I don't know where they came from, but they gave him around $1 million, and he had a whole large garage donated of equipment, and he did nothing with all that.
What a waste.
It sat there, collecting dust and never did anything.
Oh, that's frustrating. That's more than a waste. Yeah, it's like he it's like somebody got paid to pull the fight or something.
So when people wonder why the subject hasn't gone anywhere, it's because people get support that are the wrong people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a couple of questions from some people. Okay. Tyler wants to know, are there Bigfoot in North or South Dakota? And if so, where do they live?
I have gotten some reports from that part of the country, those states. Specifically where they are, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I have got some reports from there.
Well, Black Hills, maybe?
I'll say this. I got family in North Dakota, and if you're in North Dakota, you can see next week's weather. It's, You never looked so far and saw so little. So there must be little gullies or something. But there was a big report of some guy that tracked one for quite a while in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I got to get Michael here wants to know, how fast can a Bigfoot run? How fast can he? And have they been known to chase cars or motorcycles?
Cars, yes, frequently.
And and ATVs kind of irritate them too.
I'll tell you, as far as speed estimates,
I had a report up here of a dune buggy being chased in the 70s.
Yeah, they don't like those kind of things.
No.
Speed estimates, I can give you two examples. One is from a friend of mine just north of here, and he had viewed one, and it ran across an open field. He actually clocked it. He started timing it when it went past a fixed object. I think it was some kind of a fence post or something, and it ran across this open field several hundred yards to another fixed object where he stopped the time, and he calculated it at around 45 miles an hour. A few years back, I interviewed a police officer, a canine officer in Texas, and he said him and his partner were going to another town. They had the dogs in their cruisers, two different cruisers. He said they were going at a pretty good clip. He estimated around 80 miles an hour. And one of these things ran out diagonally and paced his cruiser very close to it and then veered off. Now, whether he was actually doing 80 miles an hour or not, he wasn't sure, but he thought he was. The creature ran up next to the vehicle, didn't stay there very long, a few moments, and then it veered off. So,
yeah, about 100 yards, I think he said. I remember that story.
Yeah,
and there was somebody following him.
Another officer, another canine officer. Yeah, there were two police cruisers, and they were on their way to another town.
Yeah.
What did the cops do? I mean,
crazy.
That would be, do you radio that in? I mean, that'd be a pretty amazing thing.
I don't think they viewed it that way. I think they viewed it as kind of a career killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, his partner was behind him, saw more detail of the creature than he did, but he said it was on all fours, and he estimated the back at around 5 feet high. And their dogs are highly trained. They don't just react to anything. He said the dog went crazy in the back of the cruiser.
Wow. So these things, 45 miles an hour. And the other thing is, you look at gibbons. I often wondered, gibbons seem to have some of the features that we've heard described of Bigfoot, with the arms, long arms.
Yes.
And they're fast. They are super fast. They're only 3 feet tall, but I was reading up on them. Apparently, they've been clocked at 35 miles an hour through the jungle.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, some of the early people like John Napier and some of those folks, Ivan Sanderson, they felt that these things were related to gibbons.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Gibbons you look at them and you're like, that could be a little Bigfoot. It's got a lot of
entirely possible.
That's interesting.
It is. It is. You share a lot of similarities, that's for sure.
Aren't we closely related to the gibbons?
Are we?
Yeah.
I don't think so. No.
Oh, okay.
Speak for yourself, Don.
Yeah.
We'd have to ask John that, but I don't think so off the top of my head.
Okay.
Hey, Will. This is switching subjects, but I remember in one of your books, I forget which one, you talked about how you were asked to come to a theme park and give advice on a ride. What was the name of that theme park?
It was Knott's Berry Farm, and it was the Bigfoot Rapids.
Oh, exactly. I was just about to say that was in the news last week too.
Oh,
I'm not
really?
sure. Yeah, because apparently, and I think the guy's name is Ken Park, right? That designed it.
It could have been, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Knott's Berry Farm. Apparently, when the ride first came out, even though it was called Bigfoot Rapids, I guess they changed the name of it back in the day, and now they renamed it again, Bigfoot Rapids. And before it didn't have an actual Bigfoot statue or model, right? But they actually made it, but it was still a ride.
What it was
it,
at the time, this was 1988, and Alaska Airlines, they loaned Knott's $10 million to put it together. And what it was, and I think it was on 3 acres. It was supposed to be, at the time, this was before Splash Mountain and all, and I think Splash Mountain was sort of Disney's response to Knott's Berry Farms project. It was, at the time, the largest man-made whitewater ride in the country. Mm-hmm. And what they did was they planted trees and shrubs and things from the northwest throughout the ride. And then they had a little ranger station. In the ranger station, you could go in there and they had aquariums with salmon and trout and steelhead, things like that. It was all northwest themed. And what they hired me for was to provide items for the Bigfoot display. And I purchased, footprint casts from Grover Krantz and a big stack of articles from Renee DeHinden and some books from John Green and some things like that. So, and I put maps together, and it was kind of a nice little display. In fact, I'll tell you about people in the Bigfoot community. When I went up to see John Green and Renee DeHinden, they were all excited, and Bob Titmus, all those guys were excited because at the time, no one had ever been paid to do anything commercially for the whole Bigfoot thing. They said I was the first. And I had no idea what to ask them for. I asked them, I said, what do you think I should charge them? They said, God, we don't know. Nobody's ever been paid. So they paid me around $3,000 to do that, and I purchased stuff from all of those guys to kind of get their involvement too. And after I did the project, and they flew my girlfriend and I at the time down there and to help promote the project, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great project, and sometime afterwards, Grover Krantz, being kind of petty, he decided he wanted his name on the project. So he went there and he gave him these ridiculous-looking fake casts. I think one of the tracks was, geez, it had to be 25 or 30 inches long. It was insane looking. And, and it was just horrible. I mean, I thought, oh God, you really had to come down and do that. But I'll tell you about Grover Krantz. He donated his own skeleton and his dog skeleton to the Smithsonian when he passed away. So, the guy had a huge ego.
Well, then he did revamp the ride and added some things to it, and they added a big Bigfoot at the end of it.
Oh, that's cool, because I was there, I don't know, probably 10 years ago. I hadn't been there since '88, and it was really had gotten into some disrepair. It looked terrible. So I'm glad they revamped it, because it was kind of a nice little project.
Yeah. Tom, any more listener questions? Or
I got just one. And this is from Larry J. He goes, is there a national database correlating, let me read this. Okay, is there a national database correlating conditions under which Sasquatch attack people?
No.
Okay, they just
and don't I wouldn't for people to use missing 411 as any kind of a database, because we don't need to go into all that, but there isn't any kind of a thing put together that would correlate anything in terms of missing people and the Sasquatch, because number one, you can't, in most cases, you can't prove those were Sasquatch.
You can't.
Was he just talking about aggressive encounters, though?
I don't know. He just said under which Sasquatch attacked people, and that makes perfect sense, because there's no database, and no official. For the missing people,
it would be a huge undertaking to put something like that together anyway.
Yeah,
sure. Because half the people that have aggressive encounters with these things, they don't want to talk about it.
And that's exactly it. You might get one person out of 20 that would report something, and then the other 19 are never going to say anything. So whatever information you'd have in a database wouldn't be accurate.
Exactly. And we do know they can get very aggressive, but like you were just saying, that there's no way to put together put that into a database.
Well, and also if somebody became a sack lunch, no, sorry, we don't know how that happened.
You wouldn't get a report from that person anyway. Well, fellas, what do you think? Any more questions, or?
Well, I was just going to ask if you had ever been to the Bigfoot Discovery Museum that's in Felton, California, or have you? And if so, what's it like?
You know, I haven't. The only place I've been to is the Willow Creek, the China Flat Museum in Willow Creek.
Okay.
They have some casts there.
That's all the stuff from the Bluff Creek times from Bob Titmus and those folks.
Okay.
Titmus had some pretty good stuff, didn't he?
That goes all the way back to the 1958 Jerry Crew tracks, where the term Bigfoot was coined and things like that. Yeah, some very good tracks.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a question, I guess, for everyone. If someone were to shoot one, what would the public reaction be? And I'm not talking about if they were self-defense. I mean, if they were out and just said, "Oh my gosh, there's a Sasquatch," and they shot one. What would the public reaction be, and what would the scientific reaction be?
After they got out of jail?
I think it would be mixed.
You wouldn't get arrested for it because there's nothing on the books for it, but I think the public probably, a lot of people would be ticked off. A lot of people would be interested. The scientific community would accept it because it's what they do.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing that I was thinking about, though, was that we have animals, almost every kind of animal, not almost every kind, but there are so many animals that we hunt. We hunt deer, we hunt hogs, we hunt elk, we hunt cougars. I mean, we hunt so many things, and if it's legal, nobody says a thing. Nobody cares, but it's kind of hypocritical if people were to say, "Oh, you just shot one of these defenseless animals."
And I'll tell you something, John, our anthropologist friend, something that he said to me many times is that science does it routinely. They go out and take specimens for study. So the Sasquatch would be no different.
Right.
Do you think that maybe there are specimens on a slab somewhere?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that nobody, it's unofficially acknowledged.
Yep.
Well, I know from my contact, one of my main contacts, who told me that he knew firsthand they had at least two.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've studied them. They've probably done the autopsy or necropsy or whatever.
Oh, yeah, right.
Interesting. So there's somebody knows something, a lot about this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, they're right on that. If someone did shoot one, I don't know how it could be brought out. Who do you call?
We call Fish and Wildlife anonymously.
You're right.
Before we reach the end of the session, fellas, Jeremiah, why don't you go ahead and give out your contact information, and then Don, you do the same thing.
Okay, everybody. Like Will said earlier, Jeremiah Fountain, Executive Director of JRG. Don and I, we also have a podcast that Will gave us. My email is grg.executive.dirjf@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me at any time. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you want to join the group, get in touch with Don or myself or Will or any other guys, and we'll be more than happy to set you up. There's no such thing as a stupid question. The last bit of advice I can give is just be wary around these things, and treat them like you would any other apex predator, because that's exactly what they are. Don't go out at night alone without a weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't shoot at one.
And don't shoot at one.
You can get a hold of me, Don Gummo, at jrgdowneastmaine@gmail.com. And the name of the podcast we're doing, me and Jeremiah, is Sasquatch Notes from the Field. And you can get that off Podbean.
Yes, Podbean.
Yeah, I think that's it. Just be safe out there. If you go out there, be smart.
Now, some of
And
the things.
always, sorry,
go
well, if you empty say you bring a revolver out and you empty 5 into the creature and it's still coming, make sure you save that last one for yourself. Because I know I don't want one grabbing a hold of me.
No, just go out with someone you can run faster than. That's my rule.
Now, some of the things that Don...
That's why, Don, you and I do research together.
That Don sent me earlier, Tom's going to put on the Creek Devil website. So, folks, if you want to take a look at things Don has found, as soon as Tom gets those up, you'll be able to go in there and take a look. And that's
my first large teepee structure.
Awesome.
I found small stick piles, but never one that big.
As we move forward, of course, folks, with each witness, if the witness has things, we're going to put those on the website so you can actually take a look at what they're talking about with the show. So, stay tuned for that. And remember, folks, because of my scheduling having to be moved up, we won't be posting a show this coming week, but we'll do 2 the following week. So my apologies in advance for that.
Okay, great. And Don, I'd like to have these, Tom and Will. Would you guys be willing to come on our show at some point next week?
Absolutely. Would love it.
Okay.
Yeah, and
great.
Brian. You're invited too, Brian.
Yeah, sure. Brian, I forgot all about you.
Yeah, don't forget Brian.
Didn't see your picture. So
I want to thank...
I'd like to have the 3 of you on.
So I just want to thank Brian and Tom, Will, for having us on.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, we enjoy this.
Tom,
absolutely.
Tom, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts are if you got questions, send them to questions@creekdevil.com. All questions, plural, at creekdevil.com. And click the subscribe button and hit the bell.
And we'll save the best for last. Brian, any final thoughts?
I forgot to mention that Martha gave us a big compliment too. She said that she loves the show and told us to keep up the good work. So I just want to thank her again.
Yes, thank you, Martha. We appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you, Martha.
Well, fellas, it's a pleasure as always, and everyone, of course,
have a good evening, gentlemen.
We'll be back in a week. I'm going up to Washington to visit my friends and family. Got a project I'm working on up there that will be announced later. That's something Adam's working on. So we'll just leave that little teaser out there. And everyone, stay tuned for the 3rd segment of the show with Jim. Jim did 7 stories in this one. They're shorter stories. I think it's about a half hour. So stay tuned for that.
Welcome. This collection of stories is being brought to you by William Jevning and are being narrated by me, Jim Sower. These 7 stories come to us from California. Number 1. I am new to the internet, but have been interested in the existence of a large bipedal hominid in regions of the world since I saw one in 1970. At the time, my folks owned some property on the edge of the Round Valley Indian Reservation in Mendocino County, California. Their property overlooked the South Fork of the Eel River, affording an unobstructed view of the northern bank. While watching, through binoculars, a herd of about 15 wild hogs of various sizes, approximately a half-mile away, I noticed movement higher upslope, and focused in time to watch a man in what appeared to be a fur coat walk briskly across a meadow of about 40 yards in circumference. Now, 2 odd things immediately struck me. First, this occurred in early August around 4 p.m. The temperature was in the mid to high 90s, yet here was what happened to be a large man, maybe 6 feet tall, moving rapidly in the full light of the sun in a long, closely fitting fur coat. Second, I was quite familiar with the area, and knew that there was no road of any kind within 2 miles of that section of the Eel River. In addition, the terrain was quite steep and rough. My conclusion at the time was one of wonderment. I mentioned the man to friends and family, and over the next few years began to become acquainted with the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, ABSM, and the Alma, etc. phenomenon. Looking back, I am now convinced that what I saw was either a female Bigfoot or a young adult. I base this conclusion upon the fact that the size of the man I saw was not impressive. What was impressive was his ability to move over rough terrain with such ease and in the heat of an August afternoon. No one who is familiar with the trackless expanse of the American Northwest can have any doubt that unknown creatures could exist here. My opinion is that the more intelligent a creature, the more likely he is to remain less well known. But even with a higher intelligence, this creature has allowed itself to be observed. It is only a quirk of history that no hard evidence has fallen into the right hands at the right time. I believe that many pieces of hard evidence have been found and through ignorance have been stored in museums, collections, personal collections, or lost or destroyed. As I stated, I am new to the internet, and so do not know proper procedures. I have included my own sighting here for the first time just because I have found this site interesting and as a way of showing support both for your continued efforts as well as for the continuance of open-mindedness. This concludes story number 1. Story number 2. Mendocino County, California. Mendocino County, California, September 2001, Hendy Woods State Park, Montgomery Woods. My girlfriend and I were camping along Highway 128 in Mendocino County, California. We stayed at an area called Hendy Woods. Highway 128 goes north-northwest from Cloverdale on US 101 to the coast near the Albion-Fort Bragg area, and Hendy Woods is in the redwood belt between Boonville and the coast. There are several stands of old-growth redwoods in the area. We decided to go to Montgomery Woods one morning, being told it was not a camping area and wouldn't have the motorhomes and kid-filled campsites, and the trees preserved there were spectacular. We arrived at Montgomery Woods about 8 a.m. and were going to hike the self-guided trail. The parking area is small, and it looked like we were the first, if not the only ones there. It was a cool, foggy September day. About 1/2 hour into the hike, my girlfriend thought she heard someone on the trail behind us. We stopped and waited, but there was no noise. We continued to the base of a huge redwood and sat to rest. The redwoods are an eerily quiet place, with the thick, soft redwood bark and ankle-deep tree leaves and needles absorbing lots of ambient sound. Suddenly we heard something moving through the underbrush 20 or 30 yards away from the canopy of trees. It was big, heavy, and moving at a good pace. I whistled, and the movement stopped. This was as scared as I've ever been. It was silent for a minute or so, then the movement continued. Whatever it was so close, and I was frustrated that I could only see brush moving, but not see the creature. It stopped moving about 100 feet or so away, then let out a scream that would scare the dead. We froze, thinking that this was it. From behind us, several hundred yards to the west, came a similar scream, as if responding to the first. We looked back, but couldn't tell where exactly it came from. Then the first creature screamed again, louder and longer than the first. I can't tell you how loud it was. The lung capacity was enormous. I can remember thinking that we might be surrounded, and that we might die there. Suddenly, the first creature started to move, not away, but parallel to the trail. There was a bit of a clearing, and we saw the left side of a 7-foot-tall, hair-covered biped. I've met Shaquille O'Neal at the L.A. airport, and this thing was so much bulkier. Huge through the chest and shoulders. I only saw the left arm, and the wrist was a diameter of my biceps. It looked at us for 2 or 3 seconds, then turned to its right and hustled down the ravine. We looked through the trees to follow its progress, but we had waited a minute or two, and it was gone. MP. This concludes story number 2. Story number 3. Mount Shasta, California encounter. I was an assistant caretaker with the Sierra Club Foundation at Horse Camp on Mount Shasta during the early 1990s. During the summer months, the regular caretaker, R.W., and I used to take turns staying at Horse Camp during the weekdays so as to police the place and offer assistance to potential climbers on their way up to the summit. During these off days, we usually saw very few people at Horse Camp, who would stay the night and climb the mountain the following morning. Normally, day hikers came up to visit and look around, but then went back down before sunset. It was a Thursday, and I was waiting for R.W. to come and relieve me so that I could go down to Shasta City to take a breather, get some food, find a shower. R.W. was typically late, so I decided to retire once I realized he wasn't going to show up. I don't remember what stage the moon was in, but a faint glow of light was present so that I didn't need to rely on my flashlight to get around. It was shortly before midnight, and I was in my tent, which I had set up less than 100 feet northeast of the horse camp hut. The area is a mix of stones and paths leading to other campsites and other trails to explore the mountain. After settling down for the night, I heard someone walk around the hut as stones clanked against one another. Knowing that R.W. was a big prankster, I yelled out his name a couple of times, but no response. Keep in mind, I spent a lot of time, nights, alone on Shasta, so I never had anything to worry about, which means that I was rarely fearful of anything. But when I got no response, I started to go off of pure instinct, and the chain of events became vivid. The walking sounds were getting closer to the left side of my tent, and thinking about how vulnerable I was, I grabbed my ice axe in my right hand and slipped out of my sleeping bag, poised to open the mosquito flap if anything was going to go down. My heart raced, and the adrenaline was pumping through me. Out of the left-hand side of the mosquito mesh door, I saw a huge outline of what I believed to be Bigfoot. The outline walked about 30 feet in front of my tent, stopped, turned, and stood facing me. At the time, I didn't think Bigfoot, but rather someone was up here to cause trouble. So I ripped open the door of the tent and jumped out with my ice axe in hand. I'm 6'3" tall, and this being was much bigger than I. We stood there for a few seconds, and the Bigfoot turned away and slowly walked into the trees. Needless to say, I didn't get much sleep that night, but just because of the spiritual and peaceful nature of Mount Shasta, I didn't question my safety, and life went on as usual, with my only regret being that I showed this entity such hostility by brandishing my ice axe. In hindsight, I believe the being was just passing through and meant no harm. I looked for footprints the following morning, but only found an area where it looked like something had a difficult time getting up a steep incline. I didn't smell anything, since a small breeze was coming from behind me as we stood there face to face. I finished out the caretaking season without further incident except for a group of thieving Boy Scouts from Sacramento. This is the end of story number 3. Story number 4. San Bernardino Mountains, Barton Flats. 1993, San Bernardino Mountains, Barton Flats Campground. This happened in San Bernardino Mountains, California, at the Barton Flats Campground, which is southwest of Big Bear Lake, and I think it was off Highway 26. I was sleeping in my van, and 2 of my friends were sleeping in a tent about 15 feet away. I couldn't get to sleep, and I heard something walking around outside. I could hear snoring coming from the direction of the tent, and when I peeked out the window, I couldn't see anything. I started to get up, and all of a sudden, the van started rocking violently back and forth, and I was thrown from side to side. I yelled really loud, and the shaking stopped. My friends called from the tent and asked what the problem was, and at that point, I grabbed my flashlight and pulled back the curtains covering the back window and shined the flashlight outside. A figure moved towards the left, and I could see it was walking upright like a man, but it had hair from head to toe, and in a second I saw it walk past the front windshield and head into the forest. I pulled open the side door and jumped out, yelling for my friends to get up. It smelled really bad, like a cesspool around our campsite, and I was badly shaken. We started a fire and started to talk about what had just happened, and I learned that something had been tossing pebbles onto the top of the tent, and they thought it was me, and then something had brushed up against the back of the tent, and they also thought that was me. But after I told them about the van shaking, they swore it wasn't them, and we decided to pack up and head home early. Later, I remembered seeing a pair of yellowish eyes through the trees after we had first arrived, but they disappeared almost immediately, and I figured it was just a deer or something to that effect. I live in Redmond, Washington. I am currently seeking others in my area that might have an interest in Bigfoot, and I would like to participate in an organized search. I have already done a few searches on my own in the North Bend area, and I have spoken with some locals that swear they or someone they know has sighted Bigfoot. This is the end of story number 4. Story number 5. San Bernardino County, California. Glen Helen is in San Bernardino County on the way to Palmdale and Edwards Air Force Base. The landscape is desert scrub brush in a large canyon. No structures anywhere nearby. Nearest road with a name would be the I-15, about 10 to 12 miles distant. Nearest people would be the city of Devore, population 150 at about 15 miles. It was about this time of year, May. The sounds of Sasquatch? Here's an odd one for your files. About 1994, I was working as a medic at a dirt racetrack in Glen Helen, California. It was around 2 a.m. on a spring night. 5 of us were sitting on the bumper of an ambulance waiting for another unit to return so we could all go home. One of the 5 of us was seeing a female medic on the other unit, and we all waited together, talking about the day's events, venting. Adjacent to the parking area was a road construction staging yard full of graders, pipes, bulldozers, and big piles of sand and coarse gravel. This yard was fenced in chain link with those white strips of plastic woven into it so you can't see the inside. We'd been sitting there for about 10 minutes when I heard what sounded like footsteps. Now, normally this would have meant nothing to me except that we were miles from any habitation in the high desert. Nobody would be passing through there. I heard what sounded like heavy footfalls in the gravel just on the other side of the fence, maybe 20 feet from us. I didn't want my friends to think I was a kook, so I listened without saying anything until the faces of my friends all reflected the fact that they had heard it too. They stopped chatting, and we all listened. Heel, toe, crunch, crunch. This was spooky not because we were out in the middle of nowhere at night, unarmed, but because we were medics and liked to think we had seen and heard everything there is. This was new. The sound was of a heavy biped strolling around in the construction yard near the fence. And I do mean strolling. Desert night air carries sound very well, so I was 100% sure this was not a deer, rabbit, or any other four-legged animal. One of us started to yell something like, "Hey, who are you?" No response. After a brief pause, continued footsteps. Heel, toe, heel, toe. Well, being young and male, we decided to meet our visitor in person. We started our one ambulance and pointed its high beams and utility spotlight towards the construction yard gate. It was unlocked, so we opened it wide. The only self-defense we could find were 2 tire irons, so we were 3 people armed only with the tire irons and went ahead, with 2 female medics standing back by the unit. The yard was full of equipment and shadows, lots of shadows. We walked about 30 feet inside with nothing hairy in sight. Those shadows, though, were getting much closer to us with every step we took, so we decided to retreat with honor. Whatever made those sounds, that yard was his territory, not ours. We backed out and closed the gate. The sounds continued shortly after, but fainter, from the far side of the yard. We stood in the headlight glow until the second unit showed. We turned off the oxygen tanks and set the extra battery switch to off so we could all depart for our homes in our personal vehicles. When we told our story to the other crew, they laughed until they saw we weren't laughing along. "No joke, guys, listen." They wisely chose not to listen, but to hit the road with the rest of us. Now, I know that you might say it was a bum or an animal. I don't think so. When I walked in there and stepped on the same gravel, I couldn't make the same crunching sounds, and I weigh 175 pounds. Sasquatch? What would he drink out there, or eat? Where would he hide in the daytime when it's over 110 degrees Fahrenheit? I have no idea. I do know none of us ever accepted a night shift out there again. Fool me once. That's the end of story number 5. Story number 6, San Diego County, Julian, California. Virginia Louise Swanson, a retired veterinarian, spoke openly with friends and Bigfoot researchers many times by phone. She was a very sharp woman. Given her age and mental acuity, she was 90, she was still bright and right on the money with mental tasking and physical abilities. Just before she died, she was driving a bulldozer in an effort to plow a road to her new house. She even prospected for gold in her spare time. The following story is her account of the Bigfoot creatures seen in the back country of San Diego County, California. While her story appears incomplete, it should be of interest to San Diegans, if not Southern Californians. My book, Night Sight of Gold, was written from hindsight remembrance of encounters with Bigfoot during an 8-year mining venture in the Santa Lucias along the coast of Southern California. Now, in the lagunas around Julian in San Diego County, I have been actively pursuing reports of Bigfoot in these mountains and the Anza Borrego Desert below, and most particularly within a certain Indian reservation. In February 1981, I happened to be at the right place at the right time to meet a young Indian who talked openly of his interest in Bigfoot and said he had seen him on his reservation and knew the location of caves where Bigfoot hid, and he would take me there. Now. He guided me up a fearfully storm-wrecked road. My ancient van was not designed for such, nor my senior years to cope, but once started, there was no turning back. Disaster seemed certain, but I would die trying. We reached a small flat. "Park here," my escort said. Now we hiked down a canyon. He hiked ahead rapidly, and I eventually caught up with him, napping under a bush. Below him, a small stream followed a darkened canyon around a bend. I had parked in bright sunlight, and in less than a mile we had descended into sunless gloom. "The caves are over there, but I am not about to go there." Until my guide refused to enter a taboo area, I had not really believed his story. I knew that no money or incentive on earth will induce an Indian to enter taboo ground. "Okay, now we wait." "Have a seat," I said to him. "What are we waiting for?" He said, "To watch. He comes out this time of day and walks around. He drinks from those old rock troughs I showed you by the road. Sometimes he hangs out by that wrecked house where the road loop starts. You in a hurry?" I told him no, but that I was not about to drive back down the road in the dark. We hiked back down to my van, which was completely concealed in the brush until you reached the road. It was dusk when I drove out of the reservation. After a week of heavy storms had eased up, I sought out my Indian escort. But unlike before, he was neither friendly nor talkative. Briefly, I was then told, "My people are complaining. Our tribal spokesman is very displeased. You will not be welcome to return, with or without your friends, and trespassers risk being shot." So I backed down for a while, but I was not out. For 3 months I planned for a return trip. A friend obtained permission from a well-known Indian to drive up the mountain just to take pictures, to stay on the road and not to wander around the reservation. I had studied the map well, but a certain hunch compelled me to request we reverse our direction. After a steep turn, we were blocked, but good, by a heavy pickup in the road next to a parked bulldozer. In front stood 5 Indians, shoulder to shoulder, spanning the road, with their backs to us. "Looks like we've got trouble," my escort said very quietly. He stepped out with a cheery greeting, and, as a Forest Service firefighter, was recognized. 2 men approached me. "You see Bigfoot this morning?" They knew who I was. "No? Oh, I came up here just to shake hands with him." That brought welcomed laughter, then a statement. "I have seen him. He comes up from the canyon below the flat you just passed. He doesn't come out very often." Well, this confirmed what my first Indian guide had told me. The sticky situation was smoothed out, but not to the extent that we could continue to explore. I am presently biding my time for the right moment to return. Note: it is believed that Virginia Louise did make it back to the area several times before she moved to her late husband's mining claim in Central California. She died not long after her move. In all subsequent instances, her efforts in the lagunas were stymied by the local Native Americans. Her book, The Night Side of Gold, is out of print. Perhaps she published it herself to give copies to interested people. P.T.R. This ends the 6th story. Story number 7. Sierra National Forest, California, 1963. I was deer hunting with a party of relatives in the south end of the Sierra National Forest in the fall of 1963. I would have to look up on old maps to determine a more exact location, but I remember that we had gone to this particular spot because it was as far into the woods as our two-wheel vehicles would take us, and where a long jeep trail into the wilderness began. We had traveled most of the wee hours of the night to get to the spot. Before daylight, we split up and entered the woods to try to establish stands for the day's hunt. I reached a likely spot at about daybreak and settled down to wait. I had fallen timber concealing me in every direction, and yet enough open lanes of sight that I felt that I could see any animal or hunter that might approach. I had a bottle of buck scent, which I sprinkled liberally on the bushes and my clothing to cover my scent. It worked well. 2 deer with spikes, about 12 inches long, came down the slope toward me and stopped about 1 foot off the end of my gun barrel. Their nearness made me nervous. I rose to one knee and tried to shoo them away. All they did was stomp the ground and snort at me. I could not shoot them legally, so I had to get rid of them. Finally, I carefully rose to my full height, waved my arms, and shouted at them, and they left. An hour or so later, another deer approached from my left and stood behind a fallen log and stared at me for the space of perhaps 10 minutes before it finally turned and bounded into the woods. A couple of hours passed, and nothing further happened to break the stillness. The flies and bees droned. The sun got warmer, and I got sleepier. Having gotten little sleep the night before, I decided to stretch out and take a short nap. In moments, I was sawing logs. I don't know how long I slept, but I awoke with the odd sensation that I was being observed. Expecting to sit up and see yet another curious yearling scoping me out, I carefully sat up with my gun in my hands and looked around. There, in front of me, and not over 10 feet away, was an individual of considerable bulk and stature, rapidly striding silently away from me at an angle. I say individual, as at that moment I thought another hunter had discovered me asleep, and I felt rather foolish about it. Nevertheless, I called out to the other hunter to ask him if he had seen anything, and to perhaps impress him with my earlier sightings that might vindicate my hunting-sleeping technique. He made no response whatsoever, and vanished into the forest so completely and quickly that I could not hear his progress away from me, or see him when I had risen to my feet a moment later. What I had seen was a creature covered with grayish-black hair, whose head had a pointed quality toward the rear, not rounded as a man's would have. It was not as pointed in configuration as a hooded jacket or sweater might have been, and it was not made of material, but rather fur or hair. Also, I could not distinguish facial contours of skin tones as one would expect to see at the edge of a hood. Any skin about the face was the same color as the fur covering the head. The creature was only visible to me from about the waist upwards, as logs obscured my view of him below that. He had the appearance of muscular bulk, like one would expect to see at Muscle Beach, and his height had to have been at least 6 foot 6 inches tall. His stealth in the woods was remarkable. The ground everywhere about that area was covered with branches and debris from the fallen trees, but he made no sound, and moved very deliberately and rapidly away from me, with no regard for my hail. I cannot imagine another hunter looking like that, or disregarding my call in the midst of the perfectly quiet woods. When I later saw Roger Patterson's film footage, I was struck by the similarities between my sighting and what he captured on film. Jack Graham. This concludes the reading of the 7 stories. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.